Well, g'day curd nerds. Today we're going to be making Stilton cheese, specifically blue Stilton. Now that is of course opposed to white Stilton, which we made on the channel before. I actually have made blue Stilton before in 11 years ago. That's it. 11 years ago, I made my very first blue cheese video. I looked back at it the other day because I wanted to include blue Stilton in my cheese course, the blue cheese course, over at the Curd Nerd Academy. And guess what? The video quality was shocking. So, not only did I want to try some blue cheese anyway, I decided to make another Stilton and just check to see if the recipe stands up to the test of time that I originally made. Guess what? It does. It's pretty good. So before we go any further, let me just tell you a little bit about the origins of Stilton cheese. It was first made in the United Kingdom. It's called the King of Blue Cheeses in England. I dare say the King of Blue Cheeses in France would be Roquefort, but this is not made with sheep's milk, it's made with cow's milk. Now, it has a bit of an uncanny link to my hometown of Melton, where I live. Let me just read this from my first book, Keep Calm and Make Cheese. It says, Stilton was first made in the early 18th century in England, in the Midlands, specifically in and around Melton Mowbray area. Stilton takes its name from the village of Stilton, although no Stilton has ever been made there. Maybe has now, located about 80 miles north of London on the Great North Road. It is here that the coaches travelling from London to Scotland and other northern cities made their first stops for fresh horses and overnight stays. Convenient to Melton Mowbray and the surrounding area, the village became the central marketplace for the cheese, with thousands being sold each week. Thus, the blue cheese one would buy in Stilton became known as Stilton cheese. That's from the official Stilton Cheesemakers Association page. So there you go. Stilton was never made in Stilton. It was made in and around Melton Mowbray in the United Kingdom. A little bit of a link to my hometown of Melton in Victoria here in Australia. Very tenuous link, of course, but a link nonetheless. I've only made some very minor changes to the recipe, so let me just show you how I made blue Stilton cheese. So today I'm using milk by Inglenook Dairy and cream by Inglenook Dairy. Don't forget to sanitize all of your equipment. You can check out my sanitisation video. The ingredients for Stilton style cheese are 8 litres or 8.45 quarts of whole cow's milk that's been pasteurised and unhomogenised, 500 millilitres or 2 cups of whipping cream, 1/8 of a teaspoon of mesophilic culture. I'm using Choose It MA 4001 or 4002, 1/16 of a teaspoon of Penicillium Roqueforti mould powder. I'm using the strong variety. 1/4 of a teaspoon or 1.25 millilitres of calcium chloride diluted in 1/4 of a cup of non-chlorinated water. 1/4 of a teaspoon or 1.25 millilitres of single strength rennet. I'm using IMCU 200 strength diluted in 1/4 of a cup of non-chlorinated water. And 2.5 tablespoons of non-iodized cheese salt. So throw all your milk into your pot and start heating it up. In the meantime, take some of that warmed milk and put your Penicillium Roqueforti powder into it. This allows it to rehydrate a lot faster and it mixes into the milk a lot easier when it comes time to add this ingredient. Now you may have to stir it a few times, but let that rehydrate for about 5 minutes. Now this is something I don't normally show, but I'm adding the calcium chloride to the water in my little measuring cup and then the rennet and adding the non-chlorinated water. Now notice that, so I don't confuse anything, I put the cup in front of the bottle that it came from. Giving the mould another stir there, just to make sure it's all rehydrated through. Otherwise it simply just sits on top of the milk. So we're going to heat the milk to 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm just giving that a stir so the cream incorporates back into the milk. And just check the temperature. And yeah, it's nearly at 30 degrees Celsius, so that's perfect. So I'm going to add the culture. Remember, I'm using MA 4001 here. Now I chose this culture because not only is it a fast acidifier, but it's normally used for farmhouse cheddar style cheeses, and I thought it would be a good match for this cheese. Now add the mould. This is the rehydrated mould. The mould may have sunk to the bottom, so give that a bit of a swirl. And you might have to do that again. And you'll notice that that's really well incorporated into the milk. So you don't see any mould powder sitting or floating on top of the milk pot. So pop the lid on and allow all that to rehydrate for 5 minutes. So 5 minutes later, stir in the culture. Pop the lid on, and now we're going to ripen the milk for 30 minutes. So 30 minutes later, we're going to put the rest of the ingredients in, just stirring that cream back in again if it's floated to the top. Now we're going to add the calcium chloride. This helps the curds set a lot better when using heat-treated milk or pasteurised milk. And then we're going to add the rennet solution. So once you've added the rennet, stir for no more than 1 minute, or it may start to set. So pop the lid back on, and we're going to set the curds for 90 minutes. So 90 minutes later, I did a quick check ahead of time and the curds have set, but I've removed all the heating equipment, just left the water in the sink. I'm going to check for a clean break. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I think Bonnie thinks so as well. We're going to line the colander with butter muslin. So this is a tight weave cheesecloth, not the loose weave cheesecloth I normally use. So what we're going to do now is take slices of that off using a skimmer or a ladle and put those slices into the colander that's been lined with the butter muslin. Now this will take a little bit of time, but that's okay. There we go, slicing, slicing, slicing. Because we're going to use a little bit of rennet, one of the reasons to do this is to stop the curd from fracturing. We don't actually cut it, we take the slices of it. Now to stop that all from falling off, just fold the corners of the cheesecloth over the top of the colander. So we're going to place the colander now into a large sanitised bowl so that it sits in its own way, and then allow that to drain for 90 minutes. Notice that the bowl below is now full of whey. So we're going to tie the opposite corners of the cloth together to form a bag, and then I'm going to use a stainless steel hook. Just pop that there, and then I'm going to drain that somewhere safe in my laundry. I've actually got some hanging rails in the laundry, so I've just hung that in there. Drain that for 30 minutes over a pot, or you'll have a big mess. So 30 minutes later, back to the kitchen again. And pop the bag onto a large board and then tie the knots tightly so none of the curd escapes when we're doing the next part of the procedure. We're actually going to be pressing the bag of curds. So pop another board on top and then place 4 kilograms of weight. I'm just using two 2-litre bottles of water, so that gives me 4 kilos. I'm going to drain that for 8 hours, no longer than that or the curds will dry out too much. And now a word from our sponsor, Little Green Workshops. That's me and Kim, that's our company. So to make this cheese, I thought I'd show you the 2 kits and baskets that I used to make it. So firstly I used the ingredients and the equipment from the blue cheese kit, which we have for sale online. Blue cheese kit, and that has the Penicillium Roque 40, the starter culture if you want to use the MO30 or MA11, it's the same thing, plus the calcium chloride and all the other equipment including cheesecloth. Also, I used, not the basket from this one, it was a little bit too big for the 8-litre recipe, but I used the basket out of the blue cheese moulds that we have for sale as well. And I used specifically this 150 millimetre mould, and you can see that's the shape of the cheese as we form it. So this was the perfect basket for the amount of milk that I used in this recipe, 8 litres plus 2 cups of cream. Made a nice, large, firm Stilton cheese. So, and these 2 here I've used for other blue cheeses and they're amazing. They're just the right size to cut a 8-litre or 10-litre batch down in half and make 2 cheeses out of it. Anyway, so you don't need a press. It's all pressed by gravity. So, like I said, if you want to use the same basket, I've only got 15 of these left. So you can pick up the blue cheese mould set of 3 over at littlegreenworkshops.com.au. You can use coupon code Stilton23 to get 10% off the blue cheese kit and blue cheese moulds 3-pack. Now back to the video. So remove the weights and the board off of the curds. And break up the curd mass into thumbnail size pieces and place them in a sanitized bowl. Now this may take a little bit of time, but the curd is fairly creamy and it is moist. It shouldn't be really dry. So just the final bit of curd there into the bowl. Now we're going to add the salt to the curds. As I mentioned, I'm using 2.5 tablespoons of non-iodized salt. Now, Stilton traditionally is a fairly salty cheese. So make sure they're level teaspoons. You don't want to go too overboard. There we go. Now mix the salt into the curds. This is called milling. There we go. Start placing your curds into the basket. As I mentioned in the ad, I'm using a 150mm or 6-inch mould where I'm placing the curds into that. Now there should be sufficient air gaps in the curds for the mould to grow and create the veins. So just smooth out the top there. Just gently flatten that so there's a flat surface. Don't press down too hard, you don't want to fill all those gaps up, or you won't get any vein development. And then we're going to drain on a mat for 15 minutes. Just put that on there. Just assists the whey to flow a little bit better out of the bottom of the mould. Don't forget to put your umbrella on top to keep any of the beasties out. So we're going to flip the cheese every 15 minutes now for the next 2 hours. just put the mat on top of the open part of the basket. Just flip that over. And once you've done that, let the cheese drain overnight at room temperature, and it should shrink a fair bit. Now flip the cheese 4 times a day for 4 days. Then at the 4th day, you should see the blue mould should start to appear. Now the cheese should be fairly firm now and will be able to hold its shape. And as you can see there, the blue mould is just starting to grow. That looks really cool. You got some nice veining where the cracks are in the curds, where those air gaps are. And we want to get the blue mould to grow on the inside as well. So there are air pockets there. So let's create some oxygen flow by piercing it with a sanitized thermometer probe or a large knitting needle. Anything that makes large holes in there is perfect. And as I said, it allows oxygen to reach the inside of the cheese so that the Penicillium roqueforti mould can grow the veins. Now poke as many holes as you like, but more is better. So on the sides and top and bottom. There you go, there's the pierced cheese. Looking pretty amazing. So I'm going to vary from how I normally ripen the cheese. I've got a big ripening box there. I've sanitized it. I'm just wiping that dry with paper towel. Now I'm going to use a sanitized cheesecloth. This is a loose weave cheesecloth, and I'm going to wrap the cheese up like a bit of a baby. So this will soak up some of the moisture and still allow airflow into the cheese. So I'm going to pop 3 layers of paper towel on the bottom of the ripening box as a pseudo mat. So I'm not using a mat like I normally would. Now the paper towel will absorb some of the moisture as well. So we're going to ripen the cheese in the cheese fridge now at 13 degrees Celsius or 55 Fahrenheit. Now turn and change the paper towel weekly, or it will become too moist in the box. So there you have it. That's how you make blue Stilton. I tried a little bit of a different method this time. As you saw, I've wrapped it in cloth. Now let's have a quick look at it. So I'm just going to take it out of the container. And this is what I'm using to keep the moisture off, paper towel, and I change it every week. And you can see that the bottom of the ripening box I'm using, it's rather large because the cheese is large. Bottom of the ripening box it's not wet. This is damp, but this will go in the bin. And I'll replace the paper towel at the bottom just with a bit more paper towel. There you go, some dry stuff. So we'll change that every so often. So instead of using a mat, let's open it up, have a quick look. Now, we've got some good oxygen because it's still quite blue, which that's what I like. I like that. So the oxygen is still, because I've been changing it every week, and well, not changing the cloth is staying the same. I've been changing, unwrapping it, checking it, letting it have a bit of air, because oxygen is essential for the blue cheese to remain blue. If you starve it of oxygen, then it turns a yucky red, orangey colour and goes very sticky, and the veins, instead of being blue on the inside, they tend to be brown. So make sure it's got lots of oxygen and that you're turning it and emptying the ripening box of any ammonia or anything else that's built up, and give it a fresh supply of oxygen at least once a week. Just be aware, if you don't, that's what's going to happen. It's going to go a horrible colour. Now I'm going to age this Stilton for, well, 90 days is the minimum you should before you get some decent vein development within. It looks pretty good. I'm not going to, and none of the blue's coming off my hands, which is perfect because that's, you know, what the cloth is for. This is just a loose weave cheesecloth. You can see it's a little bit gungy. but that's because it's protecting the blue cheese and stopping the blue mold from going rampant. It's just a good protective cover. So this is really the only part of the process that I've changed is the affinage, and it seems to be working well so far. So this cheese has been aging for 1 month already. So I made it on Anzac Day, 25th of April, 2023. So as of filming today, it's a month into its maturation. It's still quite firm. It hasn't started to go squishy or anything like that. And the blue mold is really kind of contained because of the use of this cloth. Now the cloth looks a bit manky, but it's protecting the cheese. So that's a good thing. The last thing I want is it to be oozy and runny on the outside with lots of excessive mold growth. So I'm going to wrap it back up now and continue to age it for at least another 2 months, so a total of 90 days. If you wanted a little bit stronger, you could push that out to 4 months and it would be a much stronger blue cheese. So without sticking, doing a cheese trier and sticking and making a core, a little bit early for that, I'm going to leave it, and I will test it at the 3 month mark with the cheese trier to get a core sample and have a look to make sure that the blue mold is growing throughout the cheese and that the paste is starting to go a little bit oozier than it normally would be, and that chalkiness has gone away. So fantastic looking cheese. I'm very excited. Join me back in 2 months' time when I will be doing a taste test on this rather large looking Stilton. Now, if you want to get the recipe for this cheese, it is in the first book, Keep Calm and Make Cheese, link down below. However, I'm going to create a specific recipe card for this version, and I will put a link down below as well for the recipe card. Well, g'day curd nerds. Today we're doing a Stilton update. So I made the Stilton on Anzac Day, 25th of April, 2023. It's been 8, 9, 10 weeks. So there's only 2 weeks to go. Now, it's starting to look a bit funky on the outside as it does. Let's have a quick look. So, just out, I've taken the cloth off because the cloth started to stick at about the 2 month mark. So I got rid of that and it pulled a little bit of the blue mold off. Now this is a bit tacky on the outside. It's starting to get that traditional colour on the outside where the Penicillium Roque 40 dies off. And at the moment it's getting a little bit squishy on the edges as well. So I know that the cheese is developing on the inside, which is a good thing. Now I've got dirty hands, I've got to sort something out. So I think it's ready for a core sample. We'll use the cheese trier to have a look inside and see if the veins have developed. Now if they're sufficiently developed, and because I know the cheese is fairly ripe, I think that it may be ready to eat already, if that makes sense. So it's a pretty gnarly looking cheese. Well, Stiltons normally are. Their outer layers are known to be orangey in colour. So it's interesting to see that this one's kind of developed still a bit of blue, green. It's even starting to get a little bit of Geotrichum candidum on the outside, and the orange bit, it's not Brevibacteria linens. It is more likely it's the Penicillium Roque 40 dying off. You can smell, a little bit of ammonia. It's not too bad. And the great thing about this, the ripening box with the paper towel on the bottom, instead of using a mat, it absorbs a lot of moisture each week, and you just simply change the paper towel. It doesn't seem to affect the cheese at all. It's a really good little ripening method. I haven't had too many issues with this one at all. So let's take a core using the cheese trier to see if we have a decent looking sample. So yeah, there is blue vein on the inside. It hasn't gone all the way to the outside, so it probably hasn't developed as much as I would like it to. Let's taste a bit though, as you do. Yeah, I'm going to let that age for another 2 weeks. The blue cheese flavour's there, but and the paste is starting to soften, but it's not quite as soft as I would like it to be. Let me just put this back in. It's quite soft, so it's going to have a bit of a hole in it. There we go. Let's fix that up there. What I might do now, oh yeah, the outside's nice. Oh yeah, it's lovely. So, what I'm going to do now, to stop any further rind development, I'm going to wrap it in aluminium foil. And that'll stop the rind from getting any squishier. And the flavour will ripen on the inside. So I'll leave it another 2 weeks. So it does taste quite nice from the outside, but the paste is not quite smooth enough, and the vein development hasn't really happened too much through the centre. But let's just roll that up now in foil. So I'll still use the ripening box, but I will roll this up. Doesn't matter if it's shiny or the dull side to the cheese. Oh, stubborn. Right, there we go. We've got one layer on, that'll do. So I'll roll that up. Tuck in the bum. Don't want this too tight. So it's had enough oxygen, so that will prevent the rind now from developing any further. I'll put it back in its ripening box, put the lid back on, and pop that back in the cheese cave for another 2 weeks, and then hopefully get in there. Yeah, lid's on. There we go. And we'll check it again in a couple of weeks' time. So that's a great segue to my blue cheese course over at the Curd Nerd Academy. So if you want to enroll on the course, pop over to courses.littlegreenworkshops.com.au and you will learn how to make blue cheese. And there are recipes for 7 cheeses, including the Stilton, in the course. I'll put a link in the description down below where you can sign up and enroll for the Curd Nerd Academy Blue Cheese course. Well, g'day Curd Nerds. Today we're going to be doing the taste test for the Stilton. So it's been aging for 4 months and I've had it in the foil. So let's have a look what it looks like. Should be quite nice. Ooh, looks pretty good. Pretty funky. Right, and hopefully it's got some vein development inside. So let me just take this off. So this protects the rind from getting any more funkier. And yeah, it looks pretty good. That's the colour it should be. Like an orangey, sort of bluey orangey outside. Now we're going to have to scrape this down. It's going to be a bit messy. But let's do that over here first before we cut into it. See, it's messy. I told you it was messy. Oh. Right, so let's clean it up. It's a little bit of a sticky rind. It's only going to be a little bit on the surface. The rest of the cheese will be fine. I'm just using the back of a butter knife. And this will get most of the gunk off. Other than that, it's a fairly firm cheese inside. And it should be good to go. Yeah, it doesn't. It looks messy. This is always the norm. So don't be too upset if it looks pretty funky on the surface of the blue cheese. Yes, blue cheeses, they get soft due to the Penicillium roqueforti working on the cheese structure. It breaks the proteins down, gives you some pretty funky smells, but the flavour is to die for. Let me just get this done and then we'll cut into it. Rightio, so she's fairly well cleaned up now, and I've cleaned up most of my mess. Now I want to cut it in across the cylinder, so I want to see if there's veins. I'm pretty sure there will be. Put that onto there. Just clean off my hands with a tea towel because she's a bit sticky. There we go, straight through the middle. Yeah, we've got a bit of blue vein development coming in from the outside. It's still a bit tacky, but I tell you what, it tastes pretty good. Let's get rid of that. Let's clean my hands up a bit. And then we'll cut it sideways. Yeah, this one's a little bit overripe. I've left it too long. 3 months would have been better. This is at 4 months. So due to, life gets in the way, this one is not a typical example of what your Stilton's going to look like. If you do this at 3 months, then it'll be a lot less softer than this. So we will cut into it this way now. Yeah, see how soft it is? So it's a nice softer cheese. Not really typical of your Stilton because Stilton's a lot firmer. So, look, you win some, you lose some. But like I said, oh, there we go. So yes, there is some vein development, which is good. Absolutely perfect. I've got no problems with that. Let's try some, shall we? Here I am, cutting off bits and bobs of cheese. Let me just cut a bit this way. It's very soft, so I'm going to have to do it like this. There we go. Goodness, what a mess. There we go. Nice big slab to try. A little bit crumbly like Stilton is. At least that's something. Let's get rid of this messy board, shall we? My goodness. So although it was, a little bit runny, the flavour is going to be there, that's for sure. So let's get a bit on the cracker. Look, it's so smooth you can actually spread it. So, oh, smells good too. Smells like a blue cheese should. Mmm. Mmm. That is amazing. Really creamy flavour, and then you get that blue cheese, blue vein hit. Oh, absolutely perfect. Like I said, at 3 months, this would have been a lot better, as in structure wise, and it wouldn't have been so soft on the outside. But you got good vein development, really creamy texture. Mmm. Perfectly salted. Oh, so good. Mmm. Let's have another bit. Spread that out. This would be exceptional in a blue cheese sauce for a steak, or crumbled over a salad. You name it, whatever. A cheese platter, definitely. Absolutely, definitely. Obviously serve a bit without the rind. Nice big chunk. And yeah, spot on. Mm. This is undoubtedly one of the creamiest Stiltons I've made. Absolutely delicious, but like I said, a little bit too mature. The flavour's not overpowering, it's just the funk on the outside and the softness of the paste. It would be less soft if it was matured less. Now remember, I used a different culture than I normally would. I used MA 4001 series by Danisco, Choose It. So just to get a little bit more robust of flavour in the final cheese. And I've certainly achieved that. It does taste a little bit stronger than what a normal Stilton that I would make with, say, MO30 or MA11. Those starter cultures that have less strains of lactic bacteria. But absolutely perfect. And the strong Penicillium Roquefort 40 that I used is spot on for this cheese. And yeah, very good. That is delicious. So I'm going to store this in a micro perforated wrap, the same paper that you wrap camemberts with. So I've got some of that in the cheese cupboard. So I'll wrap this in that. It'll let it dry out a little bit as well. And you'll be able to store it in the kitchen fridge for quite a long time without it going bad. Now this is quite a large piece, so obviously give some to friends and family and friends, and share the love. It is really an exceptional blue cheese. So yeah, I really like it. I really like it. Even at 4 months. So like I said, cheese making is never perfect. Life gets in the way sometimes, but I'm glad I got to taste this amazing Stilton style cheese that I've created. So go and check out the original recipe. I will put the link to the original video in the description below. So to make this cheese, I can highly recommend the blue cheese kit and the blue cheese baskets that we have at littlegreenworkshops.com.au. As a special offer for our viewers, then you can use the code Stilton23 from the original video to get 10% off the blue cheese kit and the blue cheese baskets. Well, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds. If you want to get sent a free newsletter called the Curd Nerd Newsletter, then if you pop over to littlegreenworkshops.com.au/newsletter, you can sign up for the Curd Nerd Newsletter that I send out every Wednesday. This is especially pertinent because sometimes YouTube just doesn't send out notifications of the videos. So I can guarantee that I will include a link to the latest video in the Curd Nerds newsletter that I send out every Wednesday. Well, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds, and I'll see you next time.